afternoon. I would like to call to order the April 1st, 2024 meeting of the Charleston County Board of Zoning Appeals, also known as the BZA. The board members that will hear your case tonight are as follows. My name is William Ray, and I'm the chairperson. To my right, we have Mr. Truslow, Mr. Marchant, Mr. Siddell. To my left, we have Mr. Neal and Mr. Jordan, and Ms. Switzer Smalls should be en route. And to my immediate right, we have our attorney, Mr. Kevin Hugie. Staff members tonight that will hear your case are Miss Sally Brooks, who just walked through the door, Ms. Clark, Mr. Downey, and Ms. Working. Because the hearing tonight is a public fact-finding meeting, we're in compliance with the Freedom of Information Act and South Carolina Code 6-29-70. 15 days prior to the hearing, an announcement was printed in the Post and Courier. A sign was posted on or near the designated property. A notice was mailed to the applicant and the applicant's representatives, to the property owners within 300 feet of the property, and to parties of interest. Persons, organizations, and news media had also requested declaration of our meeting and have also been notified. Board members, the meeting notes for March 4th, 2024 of the annual meeting and the March 4th, 2024 public hearing were sent to you. Are there any questions or any changes? If so, can I get a motion to approve, please? Can I get a second? All right. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye and raise your right hand. Aye. It carries. Thank you. Our case ruling from this and any BZA meeting are available to the public and inspection during normal business hours at the Charleston County Zoning and Planning Department. The Board of Zoning and Appeals is a quasi-judicial body that has final decision-making authority on the following. Appeals of a zoning-related administrative decision. The BZA is authorized to hear and decide appeals only on zoning-related matters where it is alleged that there is an error in the order, requirement, decision, or determination made by the administrative official in the administration or enforcement of any zoning-related regulations. A 2/3 vote of the quorum present is required to overturn the decision of a planning director in an appeal. We also have special exceptions. A special exception is issued by the BZA authorizing a particular use in a specified location in the zoning district upon demonstrating that such use complies with all the conditions and standards specified in the zoning and land ordinance, also known as ZELDAR. The BZA must find a special exception meet all 6 of the approval criteria in the ordinance in order to approve a special exception. A simple majority is required to grant a special exception. And then finally, we have a variance. A variance is a relaxation of the BZA regulations of the ordinance where such action will not be contrary to the public interest and where, to the conditions particular to the property and the results of the actions or the situation of the applicant, a literal enforcement of the code that would result in the unnecessary and the undue hardship. And such a variance is consistent with Section 6-29-800 of the Code of South Carolina, Title 6, Chapter 29. The BZA must find that the variance meets all 7 of the approval criteria in the ordinance in order to grant a variance. A simple majority is also required for a variance. Our purpose tonight is for interested parties to be heard in order to assist this board and gather evidence that is pertinent to each case. If a board member of the BZA feels further information needed to clarify a case, the board has the authority to subpoena witnesses. It is understood that the rules of your neighborhood and your subdivision are binding, and we can take no actions to negate their jurisdiction over your property. In addition to your testimony, our board has been presented written information submitted by the staff, by the applicant, or by the applicant's agent for each case. This information is now considered evidence and it entered into the permanent body of this record. It is assumed that it is complete, true, and accurate. In addition, we have been presented data assembled by staff for the purpose of clarifying the location and the applicant's effect on surrounding properties. Our board is empowered to approve with conditions, or deny a special exception or variance request. We are also authorized to defer a case should there be a need to obtain additional information. The BZA's final decision will be mailed within 10 working days of this public hearing. It will be certified mail to the applicant and U.S. mail to the neighbors and the community interests that we have a list of. If an applicant request is approved, the applicant should contact the Charleston County Zoning and Land Department staff to discuss the next steps in the process. Variances and special exceptions granted this evening are valid for 12 months after this meeting, and a 1-year extension may be granted only if construction or development has been commenced or is being diligently pursued. However, if an applicant's request is disapproved and the applicant wishes to appeal the decision of this board concerning the case, an appeal must be addressed to the circuit court. South Carolina Code 6-29-820 states that an appeal must be filed by the applicant within 30 days after the decision of this board has been mailed to them. Failure to file an appeal within the time limit deprives this court of jurisdiction to hear a case on this matter. Because this is a quasi-judicial body, everything in this meeting must be complete, true, and accurate. All the information provided to the BZA is considered evidence, and this board may certify contempt of circuit court if false statements are made either in writing or orally. Each person who wishes to address this board will be sworn in by the BZA secretary before providing testimony or evidence. In order to expedite this procedure, those who are wishing to speak to us, we please ask that you stand as a group and the secretary will administer the oath.
Please stand and raise your right hand. I will say the oath and you will say I do. I swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth. I do. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's everybody. I will now call each case by case number. Staff will present facts that are pertinent to each case, limited to 5 minutes. I will then call the applicant. I will ask the applicant to stand and state his or her name and current address for the record before presenting testimony pertinent to each case, limited to 5 minutes. I would then ask for those who speak either in support or in opposition of the case, and they will follow the same procedure in identifying themselves and are limited to 2 minutes. The applicant will then be given a chance to address any opposition, limited to 2 minutes. And the BZA would then make a motion to close the hearing to the public. And finally, the BZA will make a motion concerning the application, stating specific facts of finding and conclusion of law. Tonight, we will hear 2 old cases and 4 new public hearing cases. Ms. Working? Would you please start with our first case, but you have some information about one of the other cases.
Yes, so the last case, that was the 5th new business case on the agenda, 03-24-00759. We had to withdraw this case from the agenda, so just in case there is anyone, I don't think there's anyone here for that case, but if you're here for that case, we are not going to hear that case tonight.
Thank you.
So this is BZA 12-23-00741 and -00742. The applicant and property owner, Andrew Greenspan of GHP Maine LLC, represented by Jake Serrano of Live Oak Consultants LLC, are requesting 2 variances for proposed commercial flex space use at 860 Main Road, which is TMS 250000002 on Johns Island. The 16.27-acre subject property is located in the Main Road Corridor Overlay, Belvedere Main Commercial, which is BMC zoning district. Surrounding properties to the northeast, east, and south are located in the overlays BMC zoning district. There is a property to the north located in the industrial zoning district. Adjacent properties to the north and east are located in the AGR Agricultural Residential District. This is the overlay map. This project is currently in the site plan review process. So the first variance request you will hear tonight is a request to exceed the maximum 70% impervious surface coverage for proposed commercial flex space. And then the second variance is a request to omit or to reduce the required 8-foot perimeter vehicular use landscape area adjacent to other commercial industrial type use and land use buffers 50-foot type G at AGR parcel ending in 036 and 60-foot type H where adjacent to AGR parcel with dwelling on site, which is ending in 135 for the proposed commercial flex space. This is the zoning ordinance requirement for the first case and the second case in your packet, and then the aerial photo. This is the posting for the first case, and we did post and visit the property again on March 13th, 2024, and some photographs of the subject property. Belvedere Road and Main Road intersection, and the posting for the second case. This is one of the exhibits they submitted for the revised hearing tonight, because if you remember, initially they were asking for 4 variances, and they were a little bit different than these two. So this is the existing conditions and demolition plan, and the proposed site layout and paving. This is the west side and the east. And this is the landscaping plan for the west and east. And the plot. So regarding the first case, let's see. Oh, sorry. First, we did receive 1 letter of support in your packet, and there were 2 letters of opposition in the packet. For the first case, regarding the approval criteria, we thought that it may meet 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7, and then it meets 5. And for the second case, we found that it may meet 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7, and it meets 5. So the board may approve with conditions, or deny the cases based on finding of facts, unless additional information is deemed necessary to make an informed decision. In the event the board decides to approve the applications, staff recommends the following condition. And it's 1, prior to zoning permit approval, the applicant shall complete the site plan review process. We had the same condition for both cases.
Okay. Does any board member have a question for Ms. Working? Mr. Marchant?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Working, can you kind of summarize the differences between the last hearing and what was being asked for in this one, and what is driving the differences? Is it use? Is it intent? You know what I mean?
Right. The use has not changed. They just went back to the drawing board, and they were able to meet. Initially, the first variance request ended in 00740, and that was the one to reduce the required DBH trees per acre. So they were able to meet that. Then the third one, wait, gotta make sure I got this right. And then the original case, I think it was case 4-00743, was a request to reduce the open space and omit foundation plantings. So they were able to meet that one. So, and I think like they will probably be able to go over, I can put it on whatever plan they want when they get up to go over like what changed, but I know additional landscaping was one of them.
Thank you. Anyone else on my right? On my left? Any questions? Thank you, Ms. Working.
Okay.
So just so you people in the audience can understand, we do have monitors out front, so you won't see us looking at the screens behind us. So Applicant, if you don't mind, please come into the podium and please state your name and address for the record, and please tell us why we should approve your application, sir.
Yes, sir. Corey Stillings with Live Oak Consultants, 4214 Fellowship Road, North Charleston. I'm one of the civil engineers on the project. First off, just wanted to thank the board for allowing us to defer to this month. Also, wanted to thank staff for working with us closely to help whittle the number of variances we needed down. Just give you a quick refresher. This is the old Damari tomato plant at the intersection of Belvedere and Main Road. It was constructed roughly late 60s, early 70s. And the owner's looking to revitalize that property. Diving into the cases, case number 1, the 00741. This is in regards to the 70% impervious coverage. We initially submitted this variance. There were some concerns on the site as far as the high water table and then the feasibility of using pervious pavement. We've since gone back with the geotech and got additional targeted borings to some more specified areas and found some support to where we can use pervious pavement. So we were unable to, before this meeting, to withdraw this variance, but we'd at this time like to request withdrawing it if possible. Would the board like me to move on to the second one, or?
Wait a minute. Say that again?
We would like to withdraw the first variance.
Okay, that's possible. Yeah, they can meet.
Sorry.
Yeah.
We'd like to withdraw the first variance if possible, based on additional investigations we found since the time of filing.
That's case 0741?
Correct.
Okay. And you want to defer that?
No.
No, you want withdraw. I'm sorry. Withdraw. Thank you. I got basketball on my mind. I'm sorry. Board members?
Let's make sure staff is good.
Yeah. Staff, your thoughts?
So, yeah, so the normal process for that would be resubmittal through site plan review for staff to verify that that's no longer necessary, so that we could confirm that. I mean, at this point, we don't, we can't advise whether that has happened or not. Yeah.
Okay.
Why don't you ask for a deferral on that with the request that it be withdrawn pending staff's certification
Okay.
of the position you just took?
So we would like to defer this variance contingent on
Staff
staff's approval.
and contingency. Okay. So we've heard the request is a request to do a deferral with getting staff assistance and making sure that they meet all the requirements in the ordinance. Do we understand that? Any questions? Can I get a motion to accept or reject?
Mr. Chairman, I move for deferral with staff's assistance.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Neal. All those in favor? Any questions? Any questions? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye and raise your right hand. Aye? Aye. All right, that's unanimous then. Thank you. So that's been deferred.
Thank
And
you.
then you'll get together with Ms. Brooks and Ms. Working to get a date on that, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, so let's go to our next case.
All right. Next case is 00742
Correct.
regarding the land use buffers. So there are 3 buffers in question that we would like to either omit or reduce. If you'd like to go to sheet C004. So the first buffer we'd like to look at is on the top of the plan, which is the north property line. There's a 50-foot type G buffer required. We'd like to request to reduce that to an 8-foot buffer. The reasonings being there's a 26-foot required fire access easement around each building. Due to the location of the existing building and that required fire access, that only leaves us room for about 8 foot of buffering. Since it's a reduction, we also have worked with staff to add additional buffering to the building itself. So the back end would have a decorative 6-foot black coated ornamental fence to help, provide a visual buffer from the site, in addition to the shrubs and trees and that 8-foot buffer. So that one will be a reduction. The next two buffers are on the west and the south of the property. These, per the ordinance, require a 60-foot type H buffer. We would like to omit these buffers. So just to give you an overall kind of layout of this area. So the west, south, and east property have an existing perimeter ditch with a drainage easement. We've worked with staff since we can't put a traditional pond on this to improve water quality and stormwater on the site. So adjacent to the existing ditch, we'll be providing a 10-foot vegetative strip. Additionally, that's another 10 foot of grass and a rock trench to help slow water down and clean it up. So that'll be another 10 foot adjacent to that ditch. That will end right along the edge of the asphalt. And also, it's hard to see on this. Let me try to. It's kind of hard to see on this, but that bottom left corner, the existing building is fairly close to the property line. It's actually about 26 feet, which is our required fire access. So these are kind of the hardships we're working through to with these buffers. Also, we have loading docks, so not only do we have that fire access around the back of the property, we also have loading docks on that back edge, so we have traffic trailer that we need to accommodate with turning radiuses and the parking. So a lot of these elements are either existing or required by code that we can't move to provide more space for these buffers. So we are requesting to omit the southern and western.
Say that again?
I said, so we are requesting to omit the southern and western buffers. Are there any questions on this one?
Yeah, you're going to have some questions. Anybody on my right want to start? Well, I want to start on my left this time. Mr. Neal Nelson, excuse me.
That's all right. You got basketball in the brain. It's quite fine. My first question, I don't know if all of my board members were here when you guys first presented this a couple of months ago. Can you just provide a little refresher about the potential end user for this project, or end users for the project when it's complete?
Yeah, so it's currently being marketed. It's also hard to read on this. We have a few different, it's kind of multi-use, but it's a commercial building. Right now, they kind of have 5 tenants lined up. Just to give you some ideas of the uses, like a lumberyard, electrical wholesaler, suppliers, things of that nature. Does that answer your question on the uses?
So, from what I recall from the past presentation, some of the users are trades companies that currently work on Johns Island, Wadmalaw, Seabrook, Kiowa, and there was some talk of having a facility such as this at this location to actually reduce some of the traffic on and off the island. Is that correct?
Right. I think that's their target market.
Okay.
Ms. Smalls?
I just want clarification. You're not building any new buildings, are you? Are you
No.
renovating? You're
No,
not
they're
demolishing?
renovating, not fitting the
Okay.
existing buildings.
Okay.
What about on my right? Mr. Marchant?
Can you pull up, I think it's sheet C0-04. It's got a little color on it.
Yes.
It's a little easier to talk to, if you don't mind. Oh, well, mine has color on it. Yours doesn't have color on it. I guess it doesn't matter. What I guess I'm just trying to. So your west is Plan West, right?
Correct.
So where the existing strip of parking is where you're asking for no setback or buffer, and then the area to the south of that long building is the same place, right? Just
Correct.
to confirm. And then, if I recall, in the last presentation a few months ago, there was a challenge with meeting the parking requirements.
Correct.
Is that right?
I'm not sure at the last meeting. I know currently this plan, we're meeting
Right.
parking requirements.
Okay.
We're good.
There was.
Okay.
There
yeah.
was.
What about your adjacent neighbors to the west and south? Have you had any communication with them about eliminating any kind of buffer?
So just to give you an idea of what these properties are, to the west, right adjacent to our property is a lot of wetlands and stream. So I don't want to rely on the neighbor's property, but that portion's kind of undevelopable. And then to the south is a residence, but it's located a great deal away from the property. I'm not sure if the owners have spoken to them or not, to answer your question.
Property is the self-storage, is that right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else on my right? Okay. I'm sorry, I had a question I was trying to propose as well. You're parking on the west side. How many spaces did you add? Because I know before you didn't have any parking on that side. I could count them literally, but
Yeah, I don't have the total in my head. It's a great deal. I know we've looked at other places to position it to see if we could provide a buffer, and that there weren't any other spaces on the site that could fit that. I will say that top left corner, it's hard to see, but you know, it looks like that's a potential spot, but the site is served by septic, so that eats up a great deal of land on that top left. But we have looked at alternative spaces, and we need that area to be parking on the west side.
and you're looking to put gravel all along that side, correct? The west side, am I correct?
It'll be asphalt, it's pervious asphalt, and then right next to it will be gravel for that vegetative strip to help with stormwater.
Correct. And what size stone is that?
Typically 57 stone.
57?
Yeah, it's like a small gravel.
Yeah, okay.
And that's just for a small section of it, just to allow water to pool before it goes through grass.
And how far, is it going to go the whole length of the parking area?
Yes, sir. Pretty much around anywhere there's that existing ditch, which is the entire length of the plan left and bottom. We'll be adding those vegetative strips.
Okay. Anyone else have a question? Thank you so very much for your testimony. Thank you, sir. Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Do we have anyone to speak in opposition to this application? Do we have anyone to speak in opposition? Okay. Therefore, we're going to close it to the public. Board members, do we have any questions of staff regarding this last case, 742, that we want to ask of staff? Any discussion?
If I could just, I know there was a lot of discussion at the last, well, some discussion at last meeting about the uses of the property. I just wanted to make sure it was, he brought it up, that it's on the septic system, so that limits the types of uses that
Yeah.
it could be, based on occupancy.
Because that septic field is over there on the west side at the top of it, am I correct? Yeah. Okay. All right. Any discussion, board members? Okay. Well, can I get a motion to approve or deny? All right, Ms. Smalls?
In the matter of BZA case 122300742, I make a motion that we approve this case. There are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to this particular piece of property. Number two, these conditions generally do not apply to other properties in the vicinity. These conditions, the applicant's letter of intent states there are no conditions that do not apply to the other properties in the vicinity. Most properties in the near vicinity are undeveloped commercial and residential lots, and much smaller developed commercial properties and residential parcels. The large existing building structure sizes and fully developed asphalt and concrete driveway areas with no retained trees on site make it unique in the vicinity of the subject property. Number three, because of these conditions, the application of this ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. Number four, the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to the adjacent property or public good, and the character of the zoning district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. Number five, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall not grant a variance, the effect of which would be to allow establishment of a use not otherwise permitted in the zoning district, to extend physically a non-conforming use of land, or to change the zoning district boundaries shown on the official zoning map. The fact that the property may be utilized more profitably should a variance be granted may not be considered grounds for a variance. And number six, the need for the variance is not the result of the applicant's own actions. And number seven, granting of the variance does not substantially conflict with the comprehensive plan or the purposes of the ordinance. And there are not any other, I guess, recommendations by staff.
No, you got one.
Oh, there is one?
Go to the next page, page 6.
On the bottom. Also included in this, as part of this approval process, prior to zoning permit approval, the applicant shall complete the site plan review process.
Thank you, Ms. Smalls. Do we have a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Any discussion?
I'd like to make a statement.
Well, please.
One, I want to commend the applicant and the applicant's team for making a concerted effort to take our comments into consideration when you approached us last time. That's much appreciated, and I'm excited for you. I think you'll have a positive vote on this one. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, in addition to that, I think the use of the property is pretty unique, and I'm looking forward to hopefully some reduced traffic and angst by the trades and those that are doing work out there. I think it's a really interesting concept, and I do hope it's successful because it could be practiced in other areas where we have some old buildings that aren't being used well. So I'll just add my congratulations for pivoting here and finding some good solutions out of this thing.
Okay. All right. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. It is unanimous. So congratulations. Within 10 days, you'll be getting information from staff letting you know the next steps in the process. And I know it was long and hard, but we appreciate the effort, just like you heard it echo here earlier today. Thank you and congratulations. And good night. Very good. Our next case As case BZA-02-24-00751. And Mr. Downey will be doing that.
All right. So BZA case 0224-00751. The applicant and property owners, Igor and I know I'm going to mess these names up, Zorina, are requesting a variance to reduce the required 35-foot OCRM critical line setback by 10.6 feet to 24.4 feet at the closest point, and to reduce the required 20-foot front street setback by 12.7 feet to 7.3 feet at the closest point for a proposed single-family residence at 3935 James Bay Road, TMS number 28600000196 in the St. Andrews area of Charleston County. The subject property and properties to the north and south are located in the low-density R4 residential zoning district, and the property to the east is located in the community commercial CC zoning district. The property to the west is undevelopable marsh and wetlands. So the property contains contains 0.169 acres of highland and 0.037 acres of marsh critical line area. The subject property is currently vacant, and the applicant would like to construct an 1,152 square foot single family residence. And that is the map of the subject property. That is an aerial view of the subject property. A zoomed out aerial view. So staff did conduct its site visit on the 13th of March. Here are some of the pictures of the subject property. James Bay Road. And that is the site plan for the proposed single-family residence. And the plat. So as far as the criteria are concerned, staff believes that it may meet criteria 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7, and it meets criteria 5. So the Board of Zoning Appeals may approve with conditions, or deny BZA case 02-24-00751, a variance to reduce the 35-foot OCRM critical line setback by 10.6 feet at the closest point to 24.4 feet, and to reduce the 20-foot front street setback by 12.7 feet to 7.3 feet at the closest point for a proposed single-family residence at 3935 James Bay Road, TMS number 28600000196 in the St. Andrews area of Charleston County, based on the BZA's finding of fact, unless additional information is deemed necessary to make an informed decision. In the event that the board decides to approve this application, the board should consider the following recommendations by staff. Prior to commencing construction, a silt fence shall be installed along the critical line. The silt fence shall remain and be maintained during the duration of construction. The required 15-foot OCRM critical line buffer shall be maintained pursuant to the Charleston County Zoning and Land Regulations Ordinance, Chapter 6.24.7. The applicant shall coordinate with Charleston County Public Works Stormwater Division to address stormwater mitigation measures, such as the use of rain barrels, rain gardens to reduce the flow of stormwater into the marsh. Documentation of approval measures shall be submitted as a part of the zoning permit application, and the encroachment area should be limited to the footprint as shown on the submitted site plan. Any questions?
Board members, you have any questions? Mr. Truslow?
I had one question. The properties on either side, the contiguous properties, one of them it appears that someone could build on, the other one would not. Is that correct?
So both of these properties here, Mr. These two properties are the ones you're in question about? So one of these both of these are undeveloped. This one, the one ending in 136, I believe it is, seems to be more developable with the buildable area. And then the one ending in 99 would be probably the same condition as this property. They would have to get a variance of some sort.
Good question. Good question. Any other questions to my left? To my right? Yes, sir, Mr. Marchant.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Downey, when was, excuse me, when was this property purchased? And I apologize if I missed that in the.
That was not a part of the report. I do not have that answer currently. When you circle back around, I will have that answer as a definite, or you can ask the applicant. But I will need to research the property card, and that was going to take me just a little while to do.
Well, the reason I ask the question is it would be good to understand what the criteria, the guiding requirements for setbacks or buffers or et cetera existed when the property was purchased. Did anything change, critical line, et cetera? I mean, we often run into that.
Yes, sir.
These properties.
I believe the property was purchased within the last 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. So the regulations of this ordinance would have applied at the purchase of property.
Another good question. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Mr. Dowling. Would the applicant please come forward? Please state your name and address for the record, and please tell us why we should approve your application. One at a time, please, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Igor Shevchuk. And
Bring that mic a little closer to you. We want to hear every word you got to say.
my name is Igor Shevchuk. I kind of purchased this property with my wife. And kind of try building a house, and we don't know when we began if what kind of regulation on the critical line, how far we have to go from the back and how far we have to go from the road. I know there have to be some point we have to go from the critical line and from the road, but I don't know exactly, for that. But after we purchase this, we kind of look at it, we go to make it site plan and figure out, the film up application here for permit, for clearing up the property and, film up the dirt and building a house. And they say we have to go through this first, to go to critical line, exactly what we need to do. And this is how we stuck with this now. This is why we ask you, please, to help us much if you can.
Okay.
I don't know how we can do, but this is what we ask you to help.
When did you purchase? When did you purchase the property, sir?
We purchased this in November, last year in November.
2023.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Marchant, did you have any other questions?
I do now, but it's probably more for staff, so I can wait. Thanks.
Ms. Smalls?
I'm just wondering, when you made this purchase, were you aware of the ordinances regarding the critical line, and did you realize upon purchase that it was probably too narrow for the size of home that you wanted to build?
Yes. Beautiful looks.
So I can only have one of you speak at a time. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Yes, we look at it and everything's look beautiful, and believe me, I never figure out this for how many feet we have to go from the back, because we from Ukraine, from different country. We live in here, I live in here close to 20 years, and my wife here living less with that, but that's what I'm saying. I don't know exactly how far I have to go from the back, and I know they have to go from the street line, but from critical line, I never figure out where I have to go to 35 feet. That's why we thinking we can do it. But
I'm just not sure that you have met number 6, because it seems to me, having purchased such a narrow piece of lot as what you have purchased, that you already knew that it was probably way too narrow to build a home on it. And so I'm not so sure that you meet the test that it's not a result of the applicant's own actions.
You understand what she said?
no, really.
What she's saying is that buyer beware. That you probably should have made or done some research prior
Before I buy it.
to you buying the property is what she's saying. Okay. Did you use a realtor to purchase the property?
Yes, sir.
And did you tell the realtor what you were looking to do with the property?
Yes, sir.
Let's see if anyone else have a question for you. Anyone else? We thank you for your testimony. Now, your wife has something she would like to say?
I just want to say.
Could you just
yeah.
state your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, so
Thank you.
my name is Zoriana, so it's the same, it's 3935 James Road. But like you say, thank you for advice. Yeah, we follow the rule, we know we need to do everything, like we live this country, we respect everything, your rules, but like you say, we should, now we know, we like learn on our mistake, but realtors should tell us like, this is too narrow and everything, but I'm usually live with heart. I was looking in the back, it was super beautiful. And I say, has to be house where we can raise kids, you know. But after we starting like, oh my gosh, like, has to be. So like overall it's like no like square footage, so, but
Yeah.
now, you know.
You know, with all due respect, I understand that, but is it possible, or have you considered changing the size of the house to fit the lot? That would be my other question.
So, like I understand. So one side like you see like 75 feet narrow, and another side is 51. And if you're starting to build a house, like it's gonna be follow the rule 35 critical line and 20. So it's like from one side it's already 51. So it's gonna be no space even to build. I mean. Like in the mathematics, you know, in the math, it's going to be super like 35. If it's a 51, go from critical line 35 and 21, it's like no, even like no feet to be built. Like I understand. This is from.
Okay. Mr. Truzlo, you had a question? No?
No, sir.
Mr. Siddell? Mr. Marchant? You got one?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Downey, can you pull up, it's the site plan with the proposed residence on it?
38 by 29.
Right, so, I
40 by
mean,
40.
in the spirit of trying to find a solution and help, and somewhat related to the previous question, can you zoom in on that, or is that impossible?
Not on the PowerPoint on your
that's all right.
iPad.
Yeah, I can do it on my iPad. I wanted to explain it to them maybe graphically, but it appears that on the upper left corner of the residence, there's a little note that says building setback limits, and it has like a small little triangle right there. Is everybody seeing that, at least on the board? Is that the buildable area?
I would assume that is the 40 by 40 buildable area. Yes, sir.
I'm talking about the little triangle that's on the upper left corner of the residence, and there's a note just above it that says building setback limits. That almost suggests that if you take all the setbacks, you can only build on that 10 foot by whatever the longer leg of that triangle is, right? I mean, it's, in other words,
The lot is very narrow, and after
unbuildable almost. Or is it, where I'm going with this is there any exhibit that shows us the critical line setback where we can see the buildable area, because the question I have is, can you truly put anything buildable on this property without a variance?
So the site plan does have the OCRM critical line. That's the L2, all the different L lines on there. After visiting the site itself, this property would have to have a variance probably of some sort, if that's from a front street reduction or a OCRM critical line. In this case, where the applicant would like to place the single-family residence, it has to require both, but in my estimation, a variance of some sort for this lot would be required.
Right now, the corner is 24.4 feet from the critical line, it looks like, on this exhibit.
Yes, sir.
You went 35 is the number, right? So if you went another 10 feet, could you have a house that's 15 feet wide by X long? And, I mean, that's the question. And I don't know.
Right.
And it makes it really challenging here. I mean, the setback on the front's kind of, I think we can all deal with that because it's non-environmental, but all right, well, that's helpful. Thank you.
House is a mobile home, basically, or a modular home.
It's called a single house.
Yeah, Charleston house, right?
Exactly.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you so very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Do we have anyone to speak in opposition? Do we have anyone to speak in opposition? Very good. So this is closed to the public. Board members, do we have any questions of staff? We brought about a good question already about the size of the lot being narrow. Mr. Marchant.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'm just, before a motion gets made, because I agree with previous board members' comment that it's difficult to apply a variance when someone knowingly purchases property where they know there's going to be an issue, right? I mean, we've had these cases before. However, in the spirit of trying to work out a solution, I just wonder, is there an opportunity to design a house that will meet all criteria? And there may be. It's just it hasn't been explored yet. And so I'd hate to deny if there's a solution. At the same time, perhaps denial gets to the solution, or a deferral finds a way to get to a solution that's less invasive, and they come back. So that's my comment.
I also wondered if maybe they wanted to defer to look for a different solution. Because they've already purchased the property, but it seems like to me other options can be explored.
Mr. Truslow?
I would join in the comments of my colleagues. I'd like to give this nice couple an opportunity to have the home that will meet the law. We're bound to some degree by the dictates of the ordinance. We can't rule with our hearts. We have to rule with our minds. But if we give you, or if you request from us a deferral to allow you, as someone else before you did, to come back with some other ideas, I think you would find that to work to your advantage. So you may ask for us to rule today. You may ask for a deferral to see what other opportunities are available. I would be in favor of approving a deferral to give you an opportunity to be successful.
Would you please come back to the podium? Just one of you. That's fine.
I just want.
Do you understand what Mr. Truslow just said to you?
I understand this. For there can be a little smaller house. For what we can we put it? No. So can we?
What he's saying? I want to make sure that we're clear when we say this. And Mr. Hughes, you keep me straight. He's saying that you may want to consider requesting a deferral That means you come back before us. And you come back with a new plan, a new design,
With a little
That
with a
would fit-
smaller.
maybe not smaller, but just a different design that would fit in with the criteria that we have. That you can work with staff to get you some assistance with that. Because right now, without a vote, it may not pass.
Okay.
Do you understand that?
I understand.
Because you don't meet the criteria. So maybe you can go 2 levels, okay?
That's what I want to do. 2 levels, but just smaller, probably smaller house.
Absolutely. So with that being said, would you like a deferral?
Yes.
Would you say that, please?
Yes.
Okay, I'll take it as a yes. All right. So with that, the applicant is requesting a deferral. Okay?
Well, I'd like to, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to clarify something. One, whether or not the applicant has met the requirements has not been determined. So I'd like that to be clear that there's been no vote.
That's correct.
There's been some suggestion that some of the criteria are questioned by some of the board members, but there's been no vote. So I don't want the applicant to believe that there's been a decision as to whether or not you meet the criteria. And understanding that a deferral, sir, gives you the opportunity to present additional information to the board, and staff will work with you in terms of a time frame to do that. But there's been no ruling on your case. And so you will be able to come back before this board in a relatively short period of time, I believe up to 3 months. But you will work with staff in order to determine that. I'd also like to point out to the board that in the past, when properties have had a strange configuration, the board has not always found that to be the result of the applicant's own action. And I'd like just to say that. I generally wouldn't say that, but I believe there may be a language barrier, and I want to make sure that this applicant is afforded all of the same opportunities as any other applicant.
Thank you.
Board members, did you understand what Mr. Hughes just said? Do we have any questions on what Mr. Hughes just said?
I appreciate what he said. I think what I'm after is creativity to find a solution that may not even require a variance versus an impossibility of building, which would require a variance. And I'm not clear on that. There's not enough evidence to help me make that determination. That's all I'm saying.
He also said we hadn't brought it to a vote, but, you know.
I get it.
Yep.
Can I,
Ms. Brooks may have
yeah.
a clarification on the site plan.
and looking at the site plan, I just want to make sure, so the line that has the triangles with the L line, it looks like it's actually kind of skirts around the entire property, and you see the ditch, I believe, is critical. So I believe what the surveyor has shown is a 35 feet from the L line in the front of the property, and a 35 feet setback from the L line on the kind of the water side, and then the 5 feet on the side. So I think literally like that little triangle in the corner is the setback that he's showing.
That was the question I asked earlier. Is that
Yeah.
the buildable area?
So
Which is
I
about
believe that is
8 feet by 8 feet, right?
right.
Or
I believe
6
that
feet.
is maybe not even that large. Now staff can approve some reduction to the buffer, usually to the 15 feet administratively, to allow for like a 20-foot wide, or in this case, it was a lot of record prior to 99, so a 40 by 40,
Billable.
only up to the 15-foot buffer. I don't know how much that would really help him. This is less than 40 by 40, so we wouldn't even be able to grant that likely. But anyway, they are showing the the setbacks. So
my earlier question,
It's like a little-
you've confirmed that, which is basically there's about if I'm scaling this, about 7 feet
yeah,
by
5, 6.
9. And the long leg on that triangle is maybe 12.
Yeah.
Roughly.
So,
This is a non-buildable site by setback.
setback, although it is a lot of records. So.
Yeah, I know, fellow board members, that I would be more inclined, looking at this site, knowing that a variance would be required either way. If we would like to request the applicant to achieve a little bit further setback on one side versus the other, we can make that motion today and not have to revisit the case at a later date.
Okay. It's good that we have a great attorney to our benefit here for the county, not just for us, but then for you too.
Thank you so much.
What's being presented now? We're trying to save time, effort, and resources. And working with this august staff and body here, we would actually need to reconsider the variances that are put place and to try to figure out what we can do here now to give you a positive outcome so that you can leave with an approval.
Mr. Ray, if I could, the lot was recorded and platted in 1998, May 6th of 1998. Charleston County did not begin to regulate the 40 by 40 buildable area and the OCRM critical line until 2001. So that may be helpful to the applicant as far as the result. Criteria number 6.
Okay, thank you, sir. You did some really quick research. Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Nelson, are you proposing creating some new setbacks? Is that what you're proposing?
I would be inclined to approve the request as is and hope the applicant builds a narrower house, but so we didn't have to sit here and configure a site.
Well, I don't know that this board should. That's why I'm asking. I'm sure that's
I don't think that's
Purview.
our responsibility to do that. You may be seated, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we've heard the case. Do we have any other questions of staff?
You should probably call for in support, in opposition.
We did that,
You did?
yeah,
You,
for opposition. Okay.
okay.
Yeah, we did that.
We had one letter in opposition
Oh,
to this project.
we did?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed that. Did everyone see the letter in opposition? Do we have any questions about that letter of opposition? Okay.
I'm not clear, Mr. Downey's comment about when this lot was platted and so forth, and what flexibility we have with regard to changes in these lines. So could someone go, maybe I was
Paraphrase.
just explaining, I didn't understand it fully, but I would like to have that explained to me once again.
So, Mr. Seidel, the lot was platted, meaning it became an actual lot in 1998, a lot of county record in 1998. These requirements that we're talking about today did not come into effect until 2001. And so the lot is recorded, meaning that it is an existing lot, but the lot does not have sometimes the assessor's office will put something on the lot that says undevelopable. That is not on the lot as of now. So that's why the applicant is in front of us trying to get a variance from the requirements that are in place, that came in place after the 2001 with the OCRM critical line setbacks. Is that making sense?
How does that relate to the fact that they purchased the lot after 2001, after these requirements were put in place?
So they purchased a lot thinking that they could build on it, not being fully aware of all of the requirements. From my understanding from their testimony, but that is partially why number 6, I said, could be, this could be not a result of the applicant's own action because they have to meet the criteria that are set in place via the ordinance. But the lot was
When
platted prior to the requirements.
When the lot was initially platted, it was platted as a developable lot. There was no public information that the applicant could have been made aware of that it was a non-buildable lot. This plat that you all are reviewing is dated February 16th, 2024. The applicant purchased the lot, and I'm trying not to be the advocate for the applicant here, but the applicant purchased the lot and relied on professionals that it was a lot that could be built upon. And I think what staff is pointing out that the conflicts here, and I don't want to misquote staff, may not be the result of the applicant's own action because of the information that was available to the applicant.
I think another way to look at that is if a developer came or somebody tried to subdivide this lot today, they would not be allowed to do so because it would not contain the buildable area per the ordinance. Is that correct?
Correct. Per the current ordinance. Per the current ordinance.
So the platted lot as of 68 when it was first done is the control here that we're considering. That this was presented by the realtor or whoever presented them with a billable footprint.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Truesdale? No, I was thinking to myself that we have a couple who's been honorable. They've tried to follow the law. They've come before us, and I guess we're at the deferral stage, and they're trying to find a solution, and I'm encouraged that they'll find one.
Well, one of the board members suggested that, and I don't want to misquote you, sir, but one of the board members suggested the possibility of finding a solution rather than sending the applicant to a deferral to return. Is that accurate, sir?
That's correct. In my assessment, this property is not buildable without a variance request, so I do not see a need to revisit this at a later date.
I would agree. Yeah.
I agree with that.
Mr. Chairman, this for staff, what would the buildable area have been in 98, 99?
We wouldn't have had one.
So it just would all the way up to the front side, rear setback, pretty much?
There would have been
We had some setbacks.
setbacks. There would have been setbacks.
What-
I don't know what they would have been, but not from the critical.
Not from the critical.
So you'd have like 10, 15, 15, 20 or something like that?
Something like that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, only front and rear and side setbacks, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with Mr. Nelson 100%, and especially with Ms. Brooks confirming what I would call non-buildable area of the site. So.
I guess in light of what we discovered during the testimony and the information presented by staff, I think we need to bring this to a vote.
So this would be an appropriate time to make a motion to approve the request for
Yes,
variance?
yes. Yes,
I would make that motion.
please.
I move that we grant the request for a variance so as to reduce the OCRM critical line setback by 10.6 feet to 24.4 feet and reduce the front/street side setbacks by 12.7 feet to 7.3 feet so that this family can build their residence. There's been an objection, but it didn't state the reasons. It was just a mere objection, but I'll provide a little bit more detail for my reasoning. The property in question is at 3935 James Bay Road in the St. Andrews area. It's a low-density residential neighborhood. In general terms, Charleston County zoning and land development regulations, and in particular Article 4.12, Section 4.12.3 requires 35-foot wetlands and OCRM setbacks to 20 feet on the front street side setbacks. However, these rules are not inviolate, and they may be relaxed under certain circumstances, such as appear here. In my mind, and some other of my colleagues have said, this property couldn't be built on if there weren't some relaxation in the rules. We have an odd, unique shaped property off the Savannah Highway. Notice has been posted, has been thoroughly investigated, and appropriate questions have been asked. The staff is to be commended, and some of the comments that have been made are greatly appreciated. Again, the lot is a small, unique lot. I would suggest that the criteria, I've just lost my, here, these are the vagaries of computers. I would suggest that that the criteria as established under Section 3.10.6, 1 through 7, have been met. There are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to this property. It's very small. It's an odd-shaped property. The intent is for the family to build a home there. The conditions for this property don't generally apply to other properties in the vicinity. That would be 1 and 2 and 3. Number 3, the conditions set forth in criteria 1 through 3 are thus met. Under number 4, the approval will not be a substantial detriment to the adjacent properties. And this, again, because this is a low-density residential area, and this is for a home. Under number 5, this board shall not grant a variance, the effect of which would be to allow the establishment of use not otherwise permitted in the zoning district. This area is zoned residential. Thus, number 5 is met. Number 6, the need for the variance, and this is the one that's given us the most trouble, I think, and I appreciate very much staff's providing us with additional information and the good questions that have been asked. But the need for the variance is not the result of the applicant's own actions. They used a realtor. There was a plat that when this property was, I guess, was platted in the 1990s, 1998, I think, was when it was recorded. The intent has always been to buy a home, not try to circumvent the rules that apply. So I would say that this was not a result of the applicant's own actions. It was just, using a golf term, we just have to play them as they lie. Number 7, granting of the variance does not substantially conflict with the comprehensive plan or the purposes of the ordinance. In fact, it's consistent. So for those reasons, I would move that we approve this request for a variance, provided that the 4 conditions that are of record that are recommended by staff be adhered to. I can state those if necessary, but I don't think it's needed.
You have a second with Mr. Jordan.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Board members, do we have any questions? Questions? Statements, okay. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye and raising your right hand. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, it carries. Congratulations. Your application was approved. Within 10 days, you'll be getting information from our staff letting you know the next steps in the process. Thank you, and good night.
I was worried.
Good job, board members. So our next case will be 02, BZA 02024-00752. And Mr. Dowie will be doing this one as well.
BZA 02-24-00752, the applicant and property owner, M. Donald Alexander Jr. of Old Dominion Plantation LLC, and the representation Jeff and Baby Tyndall are requesting a variance for a connection to a saltwater impoundment dike and pond encroachment within the 35-foot OCRM critical line buffer. The subject property associated with the requests are located in the Resource Management Zoning District at 8925 and 8917 Pine Landing Road, TMS numbers 010000001 and 010000003 on Edisto Island in Charleston County. The subject properties to the north, south, east, and east are located in the Resource Management Zoning District. The property to the west is the South Edisto River. The subject property is currently in the site plan review process, ZSPR 0723000917, and the applicant has explained their letter, their proposal entirely in their letter of intent. And for the sake of time, I will not read the entire front portions of the letter of intent. So that is the subject property. Well, the two subject properties. The aerial view of the subject property. So staff conducted its site visit on March 13th. I'll be going over some aerial views of the subject property. And then in your packet, there are also some aerial views provided by the applicant. So the work that has been done was done between, I believe, after 2017. So on the right, on the left-hand side, there's an aerial view of the property in 2017, and then what the property currently looks like with an aerial view in 2023. And here are photos provided by the applicant. The site plan provided by the applicant. And the plat. So as far as the criteria are concerned, staff believes that it meets criteria 1, it also meets criteria 2, meets criteria 3, it may meet criteria 4, it meets criteria 5, and may meet criteria 6 and 7. So So the Board of Zoning Appeals may approve with conditions, or deny BZA case 02-24-00752, a variance request for a connection to a salt water impoundment dike and pond to encroach within the required 35-foot OCRM critical line buffer at 8925 and 8917 Pine Landing Road, TMS numbers 01000000001 and 01000000003 on Edisto Island in Charleston County, based on the BZA's finding of fact, unless additional information is deemed necessary to make an informed decision. In the event that the board decides to approve this application, the board should consider the following recommendations by staff. The applicant shall keep adjacent OCRM critical line areas free from construction materials, litter, debris, chemical contaminants, and etc. And best management practices during construction as required by the South Carolina DHEC, OCRM, and adjacent agencies and applicable agencies. And two, once the project has been commenced, it shall be carried out in completion in an expeditious manner in order to minimize the period of disturbance to the environment. Any questions?
Any questions of staff? Thank you, sir. Oh, okay, Mr. Nelson.
Mr. Downey, so this is an existing dike that's been breached?
The applicant, from my understanding, began the work on the dike without having the proper permits in place.
Okay. I'm sure the applicant will help add more flavor to that.
I'm sure.
Thank you, sir. Will the applicant please come forward? Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Jeff Tibbles. My address is 880 Johnny Dodds Boulevard in Mount Pleasant, 29464. I want to thank Mr. Downey. I want to thank you, Chairman Ray, and the members of the board. I actually serve as the chair of the City of Charleston Board of Zoning Appeals, so I know it's a voluntary position, and I know it's not always as gratifying as it could be, but I appreciate your service. So I do want to state one thing right off the bat. I do want to answer the question of the dike. The dike was restored pursuant to permits that were issued by the Army Corps of Engineers and by OCRM, and the variance request was recommended by staff to, because I think perhaps where the restored dike touches the highland in a couple of spots is within the county's buffer. And so the work to restore these dikes was fully permitted by those other agencies, but the staff is instructed that a variance should be requested for those areas where that dike touches those highland areas. My clients are Dr. Don Alexander and Lisa Alexander. Dr. Alexander is a retired physician. He volunteers at medical clinics today, even though he's retired from his practice. And then Lisa Alexander is a retired attorney who volunteers also for a Center for Victims of Domestic Abuse in Beaufort. These are good stewards of this property. They've owned this property since 1999. They've cared for it lovingly and preserved it and enhanced it, and they would like to build a home there to enjoy for themselves and for their family. And so as part of that process, they went through the site design review process and were informed by county staff who we want to express our appreciation to the staff as well. They've been very helpful in helping the Alexanders through this process. And so with respect to the property itself, it does have a conservation easement in place. It was placed there by the applicants. They are very diligent and protective of that property with respect to that easement. And in fact, there's a letter in the materials that you have from Ducks Unlimited, which is the holder of the conservation easement, and they are fully in support of this application. They describe the enhancements of a restored dike system there on the property, and also the enhancements that the pond provides to the property. And I'll just direct your attention to that letter, and specifically, as the letter quotes, as to environmental impact, the pond area in no way negatively impacts the adjoining wetlands. In fact, it being located where it is provides some level of treatment for the runoff from the minimal development, buildings, drives, and other impervious surfaces in this area. Looking at this tract on the whole, placing the property in a conservation easement and preserving it, as well as maintaining the impounded wetland habitat, provides a tremendous environmental benefit to the area. So that's from the easement holder. So we're here seeking the variance for work that restored, preserved, and enhanced the property, some of which was performed within that county buffer area. All of the work relating to the dike was performed in accordance with those permits from the Army Corps of Engineers and OCRM. And again, we're here at the county staff's request as part of the site design review process. There is, I want to also make it clear that there was no portion of that pond that was within the critical area. There was the deepening of a natural depression, which resulted in the creation of a pond, which now forms part of the OCRM critical area. And I think that's important for you all to understand, is that there's nothing that can, in other words, they can't come and fill in the pond at this point in time. They have actually created more critical area on their property, and therefore they've created less developable area on their property. Not only can they not do anything in the pond area that is now OCRM critical area, but now there's also the 35-foot buffer that extends from the perimeter of the pond, so that there's less developable area after the creation of the pond than there was before. And I do want to give my clients an opportunity to speak before Chairman Ray tells me my time is up. So I'll introduce Dr. Don Alexander to you.
Well, let's see if any one of these board members have a question for you
Yes,
first
sir.
before we allow that to happen. Do we have any questions on my left? Mr. Nelson?
Just kind of looking through some old aerials from the site. Was this part of a larger impoundment that, historically would have
That's
been there?
something that Dr. Alexander is going to have to answer. I'm not sure.
Okay. Because it almost looked like it was interior dikes that were reconstructed from what was a much larger impoundment.
Yes, they were historical dikes that were restored pursuant to those permits.
And what triggered the need for a a site permit application with the county?
That's what they would like to build their house for their family on the property.
Okay, so you're just bringing it up to code so they can move forward with the
Correct.
construction of the house.
Yes,
Got it.
that's
Okay.
exactly right, Mr. Nelson. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Anyone else on my left? Anyone on my right? Yes, sir, Mr. Marchant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Tibbles, I think it would help to help me understand if in fact the dike was not restored, what would have happened? In other words, I mean, we do these for good reason, but
Right.
if not restore the dike, then what?
If the dike had not been restored, then the impoundment would have not been effective, and therefore it would have been salt water on the property, and it would have inhibited the growth of some of the natural vegetation that now is there. And there are some beautiful oak trees and other vegetation there that salt water will obviously not contribute to that growth. So it was a part of restoring the property.
Anyone else on my right? Thank you so very much for your testimony.
Thank you, Chairman Ray.
Thank you. My name is Don Alexander. I live at 8917 Pine Landing Road on Edisto Island. I purchased this property approximately 25 years ago, And it's been a passion of mine ever since. I retired about 5 years ago now from full-time work. I do some clinic work for a free medical clinic there on the island. But I spent a lot of time going back and forth from Columbia, where I practiced on the weekends, and enjoying this property, and it's become really our family place. So when I retired, Lisa and I wanted to build our family home there, and therefore this is what precipitated some of the need for permitting. The real issue is the pond, of course, and what was there was a drainage area that had wet standing water that most of the time was fresh, but part-time due to spillover from high tides, there was a saltwater mix. So basically there was no vegetation that would grow in that area, either salt tolerant or freshwater tolerant. So it really was a devoid, stagnant area. So my idea was to try to deepen that so that it would try to solve some of that environmental problem that was there. I did not realize that I needed permits for that, and I was wrong, and I deeply apologize for that. But the pond actually has ended up being an enhancement for the area. Now it's freshwater, it's protected. We have wildlife and freshwater vegetation there, and has really added to the enhancement of the area. And of course now it's within the critical area of OCRM, and even though I could fill it back in, I really can't. So it's a problem. As I said, I love this property. I've tried to take care of it. I've placed the easement on it and continue to protect it the best way I can. I would ask for your consideration in that we would be able to build our family home on this property and continue to maintain its beautiful area. It's a spectacular piece of property, very unique.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Let me see if any board member has a question for you. Anyone on my right? Anyone on my left?
That's good. A fun question.
Okay.
Do you use the pond to manage for waterfowl?
I do. Now I do, since we created it. Yeah, I have my easement with Ducks Unlimited, and it's used for that. Actually, I've had ducks since we've re-impounded it. And you're right, we only re-impounded part of it. The whole 70 acres was at one time part of the old ancient impoundment, but there was a major breach on the Edgestow River on the northern side of that, so I elected not to breach, not to try to repair that, but just repair part of it that protected the Grand Oaks and the properties of what we're talking about.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have a question? Thank you so very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
May
The
I
sheep-
introduce, yes.
Would you like to speak, ma'am? Okay. Yeah, you have 2 minutes. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
My name is Lisa Alexander. I'm the wife, and I just wanted to thank y'all for considering our request and stuff. I mean, I think everything's been said, but we've had this property for 25 years. We hadn't built a home because we've been waiting on it, and we're living upstairs in a barn. We have 5 grown children, 3 spouses, and 9 children, and we'd love to have a small, modest home to put them in and just appreciate it. But also, I know that Don was correcting a problem that already existed, but he is such a good steward of the property and the community and stuff, and we wouldn't do anything to harm it. We just appreciate your consideration.
Let me see if anyone has a question for you before you leave us. Thank you. Do we have any questions on my right? No? On my left? Thank you for coming tonight
Thank
and
you.
giving us this testimony. Do we have anyone else?
Mr. Chair, no, we don't have anything else. You do have 2 letters of support from neighbors in the area, which is germane to one of the findings, I think, in your ordinance on detriment to other properties, and I think both of those property owners support the request for the variance this evening.
Duly noted.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much, sir. Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Do we have anyone else to speak in favor? Do we have anyone to speak in opposition? Anyone to speak in opposition? Thank you. So this is closed to the public. Board members, do you have any questions of staff? Do we have any discussion? Therefore, hearing none, I'd like to get a motion to either approve or deny this particular case, 00752.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson.
In the matter of BZA 0224000752, I would make a motion that we approve this request for variance. In making this motion, I find that it meets all 7 of the criteria necessary for a variance. That one, there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to this particular piece of property. In fact, it is very rare. It's become a little more common to be able to reestablish impoundments along the low country of South Carolina, but there are not many that embark upon that endeavor, so I commend the applicant for doing so. For criterion 2, these conditions do not generally apply to other properties in the vicinity. Again, the reestablishment of an old impoundment is a difficult thing to accomplish, and there's a lot of old dikes out there, but there's not a lot that are subject to being restored, so we meet that criterion. For criterion 3, because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to this particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. For meeting this criterion, I'm convinced that issuance of the permits from OCRM and the Corps of Engineers and the allowance of the impacts within the critical area would be all that is sufficient to meet criterion 3. Particularly since the applicant now just wishes to build a residence on the property. For criterion 4, the authorization of the variance will not be of substantial detriment to the adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the zoning district will not be harmed by the variance. We meet that criterion, that the request here is consistent with the ordinance, and we have neighbors that have spoken in favor of this, so we meet that criterion. For criterion 5, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall not grant a variance, the effect of which would be to allow an establishment of a use not otherwise permitted in a zoning district or to extend physically a non-conforming use of the land. We clearly meet that criterion, that we are not requesting anything on the property that is not permitted in the zoning district. Criterion 6, the need for the variance is not the result of the applicant's own actions. In fact, in this case, there is no way to reestablish a dike without having some form of construction within the upland buffer that was set forth underneath Charleston County's ordinance. So feel that we meet that criterion. And for criterion 7, granting of the variance does not substantially conflict with the comprehensive plan or the purposes of the ordinance. The efforts undertaken to improve waterfowl habitat would be sufficient for me for meeting criterion 7. In making this motion, I would add both of the special conditions recommended by staff.
Very good. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Truslow. Any discussion? Very good. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye and raising your right hand. Aye. It is unanimous. Congratulations. Your application has been approved, and within 10 days, staff will be giving you information, letting you know the next steps in the process. Thank you so very much for your time tonight, and have a wonderful day. Good night.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Moving right along. Mr. Dowie is doing our next case, which will be case BZA 02-00754.
BZA case 02-24-00754. The applicant and property owner Christopher Tiff Mitchell, represented by Laura Lee Worley, are requesting a special exception to establish a short-term rental and extended home rental in the low-density R4 zoning district at 2151 and 2151A Welch Avenue, TMS number 343-0600-049 on James Island in Charleston County. The subject property and all surrounding properties are located in the low-density R4 zoning district. The property contains a single-family residence that was constructed in 1950 and a building that was converted to an accessory dwelling unit in 2023 per Charleston County records. The applicant would like to rent 2 bedrooms in the single-family residence and 1 bedroom in the accessory dwelling unit and has shown 7 parking spaces on their site plan. So Chapter 6.8 is where we find the definition and use applicable for short-term rentals. That is the subject property. An aerial view of the subject property and a zoomed out aerial view of the subject property. Staff did conduct its site visit on March the 13th, 2023. That is the single family residence and the accessory dwelling unit. Welch Avenue and Stonewood Avenue. The site plan with the parking spaces as shown on the site plan. The tenant notice for the single family residence and the tenant notice for the accessory dwelling unit. This is the platted property on Welch Avenue. So staff believes that all 3 of the criteria for this application may have been met. So the Board of Zoning Appeals may approve with conditions, or deny BZA case at 02-24-00754, a special exception request to establish a short-term rental, extended home rental in the low-density R4 zoning district at 21 and 2151A Welch Avenue, TMS number 343-06-00049 on James Island in Charleston County, based on the BZA's finding of fact, unless additional information is deemed necessary to make an informed decision. The board may modify any of staff's recommendation conditions below, including, but not limited to, restricting the number of days that the short-term rental may be rented. In the event that the board decides to approve this application, the board should consider the following recommendations by staff. Prior to the zoning permit approval, the applicant shall complete the short-term rental limited site plan review process. The use shall comply with all requirements of Article 6.8. The property shall not be used for more than 144 days in aggregate during any calendar year, and the property owner shall be responsible for ensuring that the tenants comply with the Charleston County noise ordinance. Any questions?
Any questions? Any questions? No, sir. Thank you. It's the applicant present. Please come forward. Please state your name and application, name and address for the application and record. Board members, staff members, we're going to move right on through. We're not going to take a break tonight, okay? Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Good evening. My name is Laura Lee Worrell. I'm located at 5211 Eliza Legree Way in Megget. Here to speak on behalf of Mr. Mitchell. The owner of the he's been the owner of the property since 2009. No new structures are being added or requested to be added in order to accomplish this. There are already the existing 2 structures on the property. He's been working over the past year to bring it up to code through minor repairs and renovations. And he's reduced the main residence from a 3-bedroom to a 2-bedroom residence, which would reduce the amount of occupancy allowability in the short-term rental. The lot also, because there's no construction that needed to occur, these buildings are already existing, the vegetation and fencing is already established and will allow continued privacy, noise, and visual disruption or not disruption of the neighborhood. He will also be employing a professional rental management company to oversee the day-to-day operations and compliance of all county required regulations and standards. The goal with him moving towards a short-term rental at this residence is to continue his long-term stewardship of the property. We appreciate your consideration for this.
Very good. Let's see if anyone to my left has a question for you. Anyone? Okay. On my right? Yes, sir, Mr. Marchant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is standard fare, but can you talk a little bit about the rental process? You mentioned a management company handling that. They handle they handle the rental process or just the maintenance or both, all of the above?
All of the above.
All the
yes, sir.
above? And has the applicant rented before at this location?
Yes, so it was long-term rental prior to that, since he moved out in 2013. And long-term leases, and both residents recently flipped and were ending. And after 10-plus years at this point with long-term rentals, it was time, as we all know, with how hard people can be on our buildings, for him to do a decent amount of repair work and get the site back up to neighborhood standards. Not that they weren't already, but, you know, when it's not your space, sometimes people don't always care for it how we would.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you for your testimony today. Yeah.
Apologies. We do have one more submission that came in from a neighbor that we said that we were told we could bring the printout here, since we didn't get it prior to Friday, I believe.
A letter of support?
Yes, sir.
If you would hand it to that young man, we appreciate it. You know what? Give it back to him. Give that back to her. Read it for me, please.
My name is Marion Jackson, and I own the home close to 2151 Welch Avenue at 2182 Edisto. We support the request of BZA 0224000754 for special exception to establish a short-term property extended home rental in the low-density residential zoning district for 2151 Welch Avenue and 2151A Welch. Signed, Marion Jackson, 3/31/24.
Thank you. So that will be entered into our permanent records, okay?
Thank you.
All right, if you turn that back over to him. Thank you. Does the board need to see that, or we'll accept the read testimony? Thank you. Thank you so very much for your testimony as well. Do we have anyone else to speak in favor of this application? Do we have anyone else to speak in favor? There's only 4 of you left here. All right. Any of you going to speak in opposition? Okay, good. Then this is closed to the public. Board members, do we have any questions of staff? Any discussion we need to have? Therefore, I need a motion to approve, or did Mr. Truslow?
I move to grant the request to establish a short-term rental property, extended home rental in a low-density residential area. In moving to grant the request, I would note the application of law set forth in Ordinance Chapter 6, and in particular 6.1.3. The matter's been thoroughly investigated. Jurisdiction is proper. In specific, there are 3 criteria set forth in 6.8(2)(c), 1, 2, and 3. 1 is that the use is compatible with existing uses in the vicinity. I'm compelled that it does, based on the evidence that's been presented. The home was built in 1950. This is not a new structure. There's ample parking on site. It's well vegetated. There's fencing. There's buffering such that 2C, subparagraph 2, it's compatible with that. Number 3, by virtue of the application, again, the applicant's following the law and has followed the proper process. So I would move that the request be granted, provided the conditions or recommendations by staff be adhered to.
All 4 conditions?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Marchant gives us a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye and raising your right hand, please. Aye, that is unanimous. Thank you. Your application has been approved. Within 10 days, you'll be getting information from staff letting you know the next steps in your process. Thank you once again, and good night to both of you. Once again, board members, if you feel a need to step out, please do so at your leisure. All right. We have our last case. And that will be done by Ms. Working. This will be case BZA 0. Wait a minute, that's not 0, right? 02-24-0057, 754. 5-8, excuse me. Just did 5-4, 5-8.
The applicant, Clayton Stutard of Mitchell Construction Company, the property owner, Trust Johnson, Fire Chief of St. Paul's Fire District, represented by Kelsey Santiago of Hasike Bell, are requesting a variance to reduce the required buffers and plantings for a new fire station at 5536 and 5228 Hyde Park Road, and that's tax map numbers 23300000049 and 23300000051 in the St. Paul's area of Charleston County. More specifically, the applicant is requesting a variance for a new fire station to reduce the required 50-foot type G right-of-way landscape buffer along Hyde Park Road, to reduce the required 15-foot type B land use buffer adjacent to residential use AGR zoning district, and to reduce the number of plantings in the required type G buffer adjacent to Hyde Park Road. The subject properties are located in the AGR zoning district, agricultural residential. Surrounding properties to the north, east, and west are located in the AGR zoning. The adjacent property to the south is located in the agricultural preservation AG10, and that's tax map number 23300000049. Lot A is 0.7 acres and contains an existing building that will be demolished. Parcel ending in 051, Lot B, is 1 acre and contains an existing one-story block fire station that will be demolished. This is the ordinance requirements, the 300-foot radius aerial. The posting, we posted the property on March 13th, 2024. So this is the pictures of the subject property. Hyde Park Road. The existing conditions demo plan, site plan, landscape plan, and then we have some details if you need to go through those. Sorry. And then the plats. So staff stated that the request meets 1, 2, 3, and 5, and may meet 4, 6, and 7. I think that's right. Sorry. And you may approve approval conditions or deny the application based on the board's findings of fact unless additional information is deemed necessary to make an informed decision. We do have one recommended condition, and that's prior to zoning permit approval, the applicant shall complete the site plan review process, and the applicant shall complete the subdivision process to combine the two properties. That's it.
Any questions, board members? Thank you, Ms. Working. Gentlemen, which one of you going to come up to the podium and tell us why we should approve this application? You the fire chief?
I'm not the fire chief.
Oh, boy.
I'm Les Phillips with Hussey Gaybell. We're the civil engineers for the project. I'd like to first thank county staff for working with us diligently to get us to this point. They've been extremely helpful with the application process. Thank you to board members for your time. I understand it's voluntary. Really appreciate y'all being here and hear our case. We're requesting variances for a reduction in the buffers associated or adjacent to Hyde Park Road and then the western side of the property. The main reasons why we're requesting this is to meet stormwater requirements with the dry pond that we have to install, but also to save an existing grand tree on site that we met with staff out on the site, and it was deemed necessary to come up with a creative way to keep that tree. So in doing so, we had to shift the building towards Hyde Park Road and then shift the pond outward towards the western side of the property, towards the western side of the property to reduce the buffer there. We are meeting all the planting requirements on the western side of the property, but given the amount that we needed to shift the building forward, we are not meeting the requirements for landscaping on the buffer adjacent to Hyde Park Road, which is why we were requesting the reduction in plantings there. But otherwise, we're meeting the landscape requirements in those buffers.
Very good.
That's it.
Very good. Any questions on my left? Am I right? Yes, sir, Mr. Marchant. I can always depend on you.
I know, I'm feeling bad. I'm either
Don't.
dumb or just want to talk. I
No,
don't
you asked the
know.
questions that need to be asked, so I appreciate it.
Thank you for your testimony. Just so I understand, and I'm looking at the planting plan. Maybe Ms. Working could pull that up if she doesn't mind. Thank you. Yeah, that'll work. So the tree you're saving is kind of just above the paved area behind the bays, right? That large 25-foot oak.
Correct.
Is that right? So
That's correct.
That's why everything was pushed kind of planned south.
Correct.
And then you're saying because of the retention pond, you're needing to reduce the width of the plantings on the west side and the Hyde Park Road side. Is that correct? Just to understand correctly?
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
Okay.
The dry pond is pushing a little bit on that western property line for the embankment needed for maintenance shelf, which is why we're having to grade it back down within that buffer and put part of that shelf in that buffer, which is why we're requesting variance.
But all the other buffers are met on Hyde Park Road. That's the only area just around the pond. Is that correct?
No, the building itself is shifted into the buffer. The pretty much from the driveway going in across to the pond, there would be a reduced buffer.
Mr. Jordan, did you have a question? Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to catch you off guard there. You were raising your hand, but with water. What's the grade of that tree? I know you didn't do a tree survey, but what's the condition of that grand tree that you're trying to save?
We don't know the precise grade of it, but meeting with the staff's arborist out on site, it was deemed necessary to save it.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you for your testimony. I see you brought some support today.
Yes,
That's good.
absolutely.
No, that's it. That's it. You may be seated. Anyone else want to speak in favor? If you're not the fire chief, then I don't know.
I am the fire chief.
You are okay, then I want to hear from you then.
Good evening. My name is Trust Johnson. I'm the fire chief with St. Paul's Fire Department. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My address is 6536 Ethel Post Office Road in the Meggett area. And kind of Briar Stacks is we need a fire station in that area. As you can see from the pictures, it's a very small station. And due to the demands in the area and the growth in Dorchester County and southern parts of Charleston County putting traffic on the roadways, our calls for service in the area has dramatically increased over the last couple of years. So we need a larger station to accommodate some of our larger equipment so we can respond to calls in that area. And I think the staff has worked well with the county administrators here as well to come up with a plan to help us get that station we need in that area. So I would hope that you would support the request tonight for the variances in the buffer zones.
So you're looking forward to this new fire station?
We are.
Good,
Yeah.
good.
I don't live in the firehouse anymore, but the guys that live there, I'm sure they'll appreciate it because it's pretty tight quarters in that small station.
What's your area of service that you're looking at servicing currently?
So St. Paul's Fire District covers 465 square miles of southern Charleston County. That area there probably is roughly about 40 square miles of that area.
And how many firemen do you have on staff?
So-
Volunteer and full-time?
So total, we have about 77 paid personnel and 6 volunteer. Usually, that station is manned 2 persons per day. And once we get the new building there, we'll have 3 people, which will have a fire engine with 2 people on it and a water tender. Because there's no public water out that way, we have to carry water with us in case of fire.
How many trucks can you hold currently now?
In that station there, we can put 2, but they have to be built a certain way because it's not very deep. So it's a very small truck with a very small amount of equipment space on there.
Did you help in the design of the new facility?
I did, yes.
Okay. Well, what do you like typically about the new design?
I just like the layout. It was kind of a vision that myself and my committee got together, and we came up with what we thought we may need for not just right now, but thinking 20, 30, 40 years down the road, what the place may look like out there. So it was a good challenge. We like the folks that are living there like the separate living quarters. like the separate bathroom facilities. Right now, they have to share one bathroom, whether it's male or female. So those are some of the kind of perks they're looking at. Larger kitchen area, of course. And in places of, in times of refuge, whenever we have a storm coming in on the coast or where we have some trucks out on Edisto Island that we have to move out, and that would be a place of refuge for them to kind of ride the storm out, so that way we won't have to send them, a little further inland. They can ride the storm out there and then work our way back to the more coastal areas after the storm passes.
Chief Johnson, what's this in the middle here? It seems like you got a conference room, and what's this big area in the middle?
That's a training facility, a training area. So that will allow us to host training classes there as well, and also acts as a multi-purpose room in case we have to have the upstaffing of the personnel. They can come in and we can put cots in that area, temporary.
And how many people can you sleep in this facility?
We were thinking roughly around 30 to 40.
Well, Chief,
like I said, that's very temporary. Just when until the storm passes or time of emergency passes.
Well, Chief, I hope that this, with the board's approval, turns out to be something that you really dreamed about.
Yes, sir.
And works. And then, if it's approved, I know I would like to come and take a tour of the facility as well.
You're more welcome to. Yes, sir.
Alrighty. Any board members on my right have a question? My left. Thank you, Chief.
All right, thank y'all.
You don't have anything you want to say, do you? No. Okay, so since I see no other people here, this case is closed to the public. Board members, do we have any questions of staff? Any discussion? So can I get a motion to either approve or deny this application, please? Thank you, Mr. Siddell. So,
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve this request in the case of 0324-00758. To approve this variance, I find it meets all 7 criteria for that approval. Number 1, that it has extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the property as an odd-sized lot. We heard about the need for stormwater dry pond and the need to save a grand tree. And so it certainly meets number 1. It does not apply to other properties. Conditions do not apply to other properties in the vicinity. That the need to make those accommodations would prohibit the usage of the property if not granted. So it meets criteria number 3. The variance will not substantially be a detriment to adjacent property or the public good. So it meets number 4. Does not establish a new use in the zoning district. Meets criteria number 5. And the variance is not a result of the applicant actions. Meets criteria number 6. And does not substantially conflict with the comprehensive plan, so it meets criteria number 7. And this motion will include that the applicant meet the one condition that the staff recommends as well.
thank you, sir. Can I get a second? Second. Okay, Mr. Marchant, thank you so very much. Discussion? Yes, sir.
It's a comment, Mr. Chairman, which is, I think when we consider buffers for emergency facilities, the less the better. Visibility is important, especially for fire stations. I mean, they're not just a point of refuge during storms, but they can also be a safe haven for people who feel threatened. And in many ways, and I know we have county ordinances and they're very important, but fire stations in particular and police stations in particular need visibility. So I think this buffer thing on the road, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it can be visible as possible. I think it's important for the community, and frankly, we ought to be highlighting our good working firemen and women. So for what it's worth.
Thank you. Anyone else? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye and raising your right hand. Aye. It is unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen. Your application has been approved. You'll be getting information from staff within the next 10 days, letting you know the next steps in the process. Good night, Chief. Gentlemen, good night. Ms. Working?
Yeah, so for May, we have 9 total, and they're all separate projects. So there's 3 STRs, a variance for a sidewalk, that one's site plan review, and then the other 5, the last 5, are all tree encroachments or removals for residential. So 9 different properties, 9 cases. Just a thought, I don't know if you want to start earlier or not, or start at 5. 4 or 5.
So we had 3 STRs, okay, short-term rentals.
1
and-
sidewalk variance and 5 tree variances.
And where are the trees?
They're all residential trees on different lots.
Throughout?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you say, board? You want to start a little earlier, or do we want to keep it at 5 o'clock?
4 hours is 4 hours.
Yeah. It doesn't matter to us, I just, whatever you guys.
If we move
prefer.
it forward, will everyone be able to attend and make it on time if we moved it earlier?
Yeah, that's the more important thing.
Yes. So.
We
I'm
don't
not
have
he-
a preference either way, we're fine with 4, we're fine with 5.
So if I'm not hearing any objections, then we can move it to 4 o'clock?
I might be a few minutes late.
Yeah, I might be a few minutes late. I'll do my best.
Okay, well, we appreciate that. All right, so we don't have a vote. All those in favor to move it to 4 o'clock, please indicate by saying aye. Aye? Any opposed? Well, good. 4 o'clock.
Okay.
Anything else?
Oh, sorry. So basically, everyone last month was able to complete 2 hours. So you guys just have 1 more hour to complete the rest of the train. So good job, yay. I heard it was pretty good.
Yep.
I was-
Welcome
I was
back.
laid up.
Definitely. Definitely welcome back.
Yeah, thank you, I heard they did a great job.
Thank you, folks. Meeting adjourned.